jobs? You guys want jobs? When are you gonna get it? There are no jobs! Not for us, anyway.
It's the Solar One Sci-Fi Podcast.
It's good. Is that... You can make that as an intro if you want. Okay.
So hello. Hello. But I'd like to introduce from across the universe in the vast reaches of the darkness of outer space where nobody can hear you scream. I introduce to you Michael Ball.
Hello. How are you?
And I'm good. I'm good, and I'm by the gods of science fiction. And they you saw the other host of the show, an M141 pulse rifle.
Now I don't know whether you fired it. I mean, when you fired it, we saw the display going down, but we couldn't hear it. So it might be that the filter.
What do you mean you couldn't hear it?
No, there's not a sound at all. So he heard you go.
You've spoiled that moment for me.
Blame
again.
Zoom. Blame Zoom.
So I'd like to thank my friend John for modding. Yes, John, you're always saying I don't say thank you. I'd like to thank you for modding the pulse rifle, and thank you very much. So, and this week we're going to be talking about something very interesting, and I'm going to go
different. Yeah, it's going to be something that's a bit different from the norm. First of all, as you say, your friend John made that gun look really good. Before we go on about the subject, what exactly did he do to actually enhance it? What did he do exactly?
What do you mean? What did he do?
Well, you said he did something to your gun. What did he do?
All right, yeah, no, right. It's a limited edition Nerf Hasbro gun. It fires darts, actually. You load them in.
Oh, okay.
So under law, they're not allowed to send your gun in gun colours. So it was yellow and black. So when he got it, it's for display. He painted it all up and that. And when you fire the thing, it's got the grenade launcher as well, and it counts down. So, but they come in different colours, but they're very limited. And I was lucky to get one from Hasbro.
And you're saying it's because
and they're going for stupid money on eBay.
And you're saying it's because originally it was like some weird kiddie colour, like yellow or something, because otherwise
yellow. You were yellow,
okay.
yeah.
Well, it looked really good anyway. It looked good. So tonight we're going to talk about an interesting subject. Martin sort of suggested this the other week, and he was talking about the episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine's third season. It was a two-parter. It was called Past Tense, set in San Francisco in 2024, which actually they went back to the same year in Picard as well recently, which is quite an interesting coincidence. And it was about all the political upheavals in society in this, obviously it's an alternate reality to our reality, but we just wanted to talk about it generally and see the differences perhaps as to how they depicted 2024 to how we are now living the year before in 2023. Would you say that's the best sort of analogy of what we're talking about today?
Yeah, because there was something that happened this year I saw on the news. I'm not gonna name certain politicians in another country where one of them said,
right,
for the homeless problem in our country, what we could do is get lots of social workers and lots of people, and we'll put them all in tents outside.
That's
and
interesting.
he was trying to make out that he was going to be they were going to sort the problems out,
which is a very, very distinct parallel with a certain. Go on.
Because when I watched Past Tense over the weekend, there's a scene with the woman that works in the sanctuary, that office in the sanctuary.
Yes.
She said when this started, we did the right things.
That's
but
right.
then they just kept piling people in of all persuasions. Didn't matter. They just shoved them all in there. And it got out of control. And I sat there when this certain politician says, I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to hit people, but he did sort of say that to solve these problems, we build an area outside somewhere and we get. And I thought, you're going to build housing, which so he said, no, tents. And straight away, these two episodes came to my mind. And that's what got on. And when I watched Past Tense at weekend, my God, I'm starting to see similarities
going that way.
I'm not saying we're quite there yet. But I'm starting to see bits, attitudes, and let's put it all under the carpet.
Well, it's a very interesting episode because, as you say, it was a very, very clever idea of solving a lot of antisocial problems in society. In that episode, it was people who were poor, homeless, but it also had people with mental health issues as well. Yeah. And it was literally just putting a lot of the city's problems and just putting it into a block, into the sanctuary districts, where they couldn't leave there. They had to just coexist, and then people outside of these districts were then in what they class as being almost like the normal, decent world, and they're just trying to get any of the antisocial aspects, which happened with any society, and putting it into one area, out of sight, out of mind. So it was quite interesting what you said about this politician who had this idea of putting people.
I'll tell you who the politician was after this.
Yeah, fine. Don't share it on this, of course. Yeah. But so it was. Is that what made you think about doing this episode then? Because
it did. Because I'm looking at our own social structure, and there's a lot of problems that are being ignored now that need sorting out. And when I was watching this episode, there was some pertinent questions being mentioned, and don't forget this episode was done in the 90s.
Yep.
And I was sat there watching it, and I'm thinking, my God, the writing for this is absolutely. This is why
so solid,
so bloody good.
I know it is.
And when I watched this back in the 90s, I wouldn't have thought we'd be seeing something like that.
I think that episode's made about 1995. It was mid 90s. So it's nearly
coming out with that.
Yeah. And it was really funny because it features a well-known bit part actor called Dick Miller, and he was one of the security or one of the actual people enforcing him. And I remember him saying things like, "Oh, check your email, buddy." And this is when emails were quite new, and they called it the intranet.
Yeah, the intranet,
right?
Yeah.
And even then, and of course they got some things wrong. But what I did also like is that they obviously realised just how well this episode was made, because in Star Trek Picard Season 2, it's set in Los Angeles rather than San Francisco. But they were very clever because they had Los Angeles also had its sanctuary districts, and it had the signs, and it was I thought it was a very clever thing where they obviously thought, well, this is such a clever idea. It's set in the same year, and it complemented the original episode from 30 years ago.
It did. And
that is the one really nice thing.
Redeeming thing of Picard season 2.
I was really touched by that. I thought that was a really good thing, because DS9 often is the show which can often get sort of like left behind with a lot of people in the Star Trek fandom, because it's not primarily on a starship, although they have to find in season 3 onwards, and it's only in not recent years, but for a long time it was put on the back burner with the Next Generation and Voyager, and only now, I think, because of the way, like this past tense story, it was so ahead of its time. Now people looking back say, well, you know what, this is why we're here now. That was such a good idea. That was such a clever idea, and how it's not dated at all. It's very, very contemporary, and I think that's one of its main strengths. You know what I mean?
Well, the questions that were being asked, there were certain scenes, like when Bashir said to Sisko, I said, "What happened?"
And there was a scene he said,
"Answering today."
He said, "How could we have let things get so bad?" And this is at the end of the episode too. And Sisko says, "I don't know. I don't know how." And he kind of just said that he don't know why it got as bad as it did.
He said they gave up. They gave up. There were no jobs and costs and all this.
Yeah.
He said there were no answers. There was nobody, because like that security guard, that actor,
Dick Miller,
he had that attitude of he didn't give a shit.
But at the end, he did. He did learn at the end, and that was one of the main aspects. Yeah.
Because her that works in the office, she cared, but she couldn't do anything.
No.
She cared,
part of the system.
Cared about these people.
She said that she let somebody into the sanctuary district which shouldn't have been there, and because it was someone who needed help, and it's the only place, and she almost lost her job about it, and she was terrified of losing her income from her job in a society.
She'd end up in there,
and she was part of the system, and she was almost like imprisoned. Some very, very clever ideas, very complicated social aspects. And I honestly think that Past Tense is one of the top 10 stories of Deep Space Nine, even though it's not that.
I think Deep Space Nine is some of the best television writing in the world, even to this day.
Yeah.
The writing, and for them to put this together, there's the scene where Dax, when she gets found by that millionaire guy on that media company.
Cole Brenner, I think his name was.
Yeah. Well, they go to that party. They go to that party, and they're at this cocktail do, and she says, "Well, they're going on about it," and there's that other post couple there going, "Well, we need them out of the way, you know." They're going to spoil it for the rest, you know, because they've got money and they're comfortable.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
It's forget everybody else, you know. We don't have to look at these people anymore.
That's right. And they said something like, "Oh, well, that's the only place we could. That's these people. That's the only thing they deserve. That's the only place they should go to." It's like we don't want to have anything like that in our lives. It's very, very clever ideas. I thought also I like the actor who played BC, the guy that was a ghost, because you had its terms. You had the gimmies, the ghosts, and you had there's one for the people with disabilities or something else. Gimmies, ghosts.
The gimmies were people with mental health problems. The ghosts, I think, were like
ghosts are the antisocial ones.
Yeah, the antisocial. Yeah.
There was 3. Anyway, but I thought the actor, I'd never seen him in anything else, but the actor who played BC, the one that was the antagonist, the one that was really a hothead, I thought he was really good. I mean, I did like the guest stars in this episode as well, and I thought it was just so bleak, and it was, you know, when you see them in their Starfleet uniforms in part 1, and they're in this really, Star Trek's never gone to that part of Earth's history before, not in that way. I mean, we know that it got dark with the World War III, but we never really sort of saw a sort of almost contemporary time, even though it's about 30 years ahead when they made it in 1995, as to how society would really be in decline in the 21st century until we sorted ourselves out at the end of the 21st after World War III. I just thought it was really clever. I just thought that the way that it was all just done, the music was good. I think Dennis McCarthy did the music. I love his music. I think it was really good. It was also interesting that Gabriel Bell was also mentioned as it's actually an alternate timeline from the end of the episode, because Nog in season 4, he's looking through the history books and he comes across Gabriel Bell, a picture. And of course, it's Cisco.
Green man, yeah.
And so it's actually a slight tangent in the timeline was created with that episode.
Yeah,
just slightly.
I just found that with the episodes, it's so relevant today.
Yeah,
the whole thing. When I watched it when I was in over the week. I watched both together. And I sat there and I thought, my God, are we moving into this type of world? You know, because if our politicians don't start getting a grip, instead of banging on about a load of dribble, every society in the world needs to start dealing with their internal problems now.
Let me ask you a question. Sorry to interrupt. I don't know about you, but in the recent years, especially the last year or two now, when I get news stories, it always seems more bleak than it used to be. And it does seem to be that, you know, there is a downward spiral, I think, generally for society in lots of different forms. And I don't know whether that's just me getting older and being more observant, or whether there is some decline or cynical. I mean, what do you think? Do you perceive that yourself?
I don't know. I've always tried to be like a bit of an optimist,
right?
Not too much, but tried to think, all right, we all have bad times, but somewhere it's life. To me, is like you open a gate into a field, and then you have to navigate across the field to the next gate. And one field could be bad.
Yeah.
So you could, and then once you get to the end of that field, you open the other gate, and your life gets better. So it's up and down.
Yeah.
In different sorts of environments.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But when I look at stuff now, when I get notifications on my phone, and I'm not going to go into left or right wing politics.
No. We're keeping it neutral. Yeah.
It's like they are trying to pose a sense of fear, and it's hopeless, and that, oh, we can't cope with this, and we're overloaded on that, and like social problems, and you sit there and you think.
It seems more prominent.
I
it
want to
seems
shut myself off for a moment.
It seems more prominent now. I have the BBC app, the news app, and I used to very, very rarely get a breaking news alerts jingle sound, and it'd be something bad, like something going in Ukraine. I'm getting like 4 or 5 alerts a day now, and it's like all I'm getting is negativity. I need to know what's going on in the world, but I don't need it so in my face all the time. And it seems to be more negative. Oh, this is going on. Oh, this could do this. This could go. And I don't know whether that's what I'm saying. Whether society now is almost like feeding you more negativity, or whether it's just that there is just generally more negativity. Yeah. I just don't quite know how it's going at the moment.
I mean, it's like when Bashir said, how did it become like this? He said they just gave up.
Yeah,
because there were no leadership and nobody prepared to take.
They couldn't deal with it.
They couldn't. Instead of trying to deal with the social,
they put them all in the block, and they caught them.
He did say that they threw money at it and it didn't do it. But it's not just about money. It's about creating a vision and to make people. Politicians have to be set at a standard.
Sure.
If you're going to go into political office, and represent your constituents, whoever you are, you've got to. To me, the minute you do that, you're on a higher standard. You've got to, you stick by the law. You've got to create that where people think, I like this guy. He's paying his taxes. He's doing the right thing. He's not just on selling bullshit in a way and spin and all this. I mean, a proper politics. I mean, there is some decent ones. Of course, there is. I don't think there's enough of them. Where people, when society starts becoming like that, you can't just shove your problems under the carpet because it's going to get worse.
This is what that episode did.
People.
And that episode did shove its problems under the carpet.
It did. Because it showed that at that cocktail party with that couple.
Yeah.
Going, I can have a latte and I can say, I don't have to look at these people. And
yeah. That's the only place that they deserve to go.
All this.
Yeah.
Look, you're not going to help everybody. You're not going to help everybody, are you?
No, you're not. No.
Hello? Oh, you're
Hello. Back. It's all right, yeah.
Hello?
It's all right. It's a slight delay. Right. I'm back. Go on.
But you're not going to help everybody, but our people are decent. I try to believe that. I think you should. I try not to think badly of a lot of people, but society, you can't just shove social problems under the carpet. You can't. Things need to be dealt with, and shoving them all in a room or an area and building a wall around it is going to make it worse, because that's going to leak out. It already started, because when they had that hostage siege, there was that other guy, the other actor, who said, look, we've all got to stop fighting and work together. And they all went in front of that camera telling their life stories.
That's right, they all were giving their life. And that's what to actually get what it was like out of sight, out of mind. But in that show, they were making it that they really weren't trying to go on too much about it. So the people who were considered as contributors were then, they weren't sort of always going on about, the people in the sanctuary district, it's really getting to this amount now. There was this crime, there was this murder in one sanctuary district C last night. It was kept out of the news more, which is quite an interesting idea as well. So that people who were successful weren't aware of this really negative.
They turned a blind eye to it.
They made it so that this is a difference, because in society, anything in our reality rather is always thrown in your face. That's an interesting difference. In past tense, they tried to do it so that it was put, but sort of like hidden away, put on the back burner. In our reality, everything's in your face. That's an interesting difference.
Do you think we're heading down? We could head down that path where it's in your face now, and then so we've had enough of that. Let's put the problem out of the way. Do you know what?
I think it's not going to happen now, because everybody is so gets so easily offended. It's a very snowflake world. So if there seriously,
No, you
if
make
there
a
are
good
things
point.
going on, then it would be the opposite. It would be rather than you not hearing about the sanctuary districts, you'd hear more about the sanctuary districts than you'd hear about the latest things going on in EastEnders. It would be literally all the time. It would be very prominent, and then you get a backlash. I think it would be completely opposite. I think. Than the way it's done.
But that's also a good sign, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that is a good sign.
Because if they did, I mean, the thing is now that people are carrying on about certain politicians and political matters in this country, and if we did get some kind of government in where look, we can't solve it, let's just put it under the carpet and just leave them all there. You're never going to run a problem. By doing that, you're going to create more problems. But there'll be more people shouting and screaming about it. Yeah. So hopefully that would stop. That's the wake-up call to avoid this situation. But I think it could go that way. I don't think it's beyond impossibility.
Well, I think what you have to think about is that basically the Earth has got limited resources, and we are trying to make the best with what we've got.
Yeah.
If in the future, there's more and more people being born, they say it's going to level out. I'm a bit dubious about that myself. I don't quite see why it will level out, but
I think
in the end, we are quite near what Earth can handle with respect to the amount of humans in society, in the world.
There is certain societies in our world where they're not breeding. They're just not having families, and that's the balancing out.
And this is what you say. Yeah. So I mean, but until now, I mean, even like about 30, 40 years ago, there's only about 3 billion people. Now there's 8 billion. I mean, we're talking about.
There was.
What I'm saying is, I don't care what anybody says. I think that's really worrying. I think the population explosion is a concern. If it does level out, then fine. And as you say, I have heard this too, that it is slowing down. They actually forecast it's going to decrease. I think people are having smaller families, and society is different, so that's good. But going back to DS9, it wasn't so much the population explosion. It was just about the fact that there was aspects of society which are negative, and in that series, in that forecast for 2024, they thought, and you can see where they were coming from, just put them in a place where they're all contained, get them out of sight, and they can actually they can live. They will have some support, but in the end, it was a way of calling them off and keeping them out of way.
Yeah, but it's dangerous to do that because you're bottling your problem, and then people eventually are gonna break out of there. You can't do it. You can't run a country like a corporation. A civilized nation is going to have problems, and the problems need to be dealt with at the core. So and like they just ignored it. I mean, I remember there were a thing about people losing their jobs because automation and all that had come in, and a lot of them couldn't work because some of them said I worked in a car plant and
now it's got taken over. Yes, I remember that bit. Yeah, I remember that.
And then
bit
they shoved me in here, and I'd work, and I just thought he's making good points here, but the hope in the series was in them 2 episodes is Cisco and Bashir. They're the hope because they're the positivity. They're the ones that see they see it all for what it is.
They're from the other side.
They come from a better place.
They're from the other side. Exactly. They're from where all the mistakes of that era were eventually fixed. But they probably weren't aware so much about just how bad things were. It was educational for them as 24th century people of the Federation or Starfleet going back to humanity in 2024 and seeing how bad it was.
There's an episode in Enterprise, I think it's in Broken Bow, the pilot, where they're having dinner with T'Pol.
Yeah.
Archer and Trip and T'Pol. And she's going on about, well, you haven't really fully grown up as a species yet,
Too primitive. Yeah.
And he turned around, Trip said to her, he said, yeah, but we solved all our problems in 50 years.
I remember him saying that, yes.
He said to her, he said, after, all right, he said, we've had 3 world wars, right? He said, but he said, after that, And look, I'm not conduct, but he turned around and said after it went too far, we solved our problems in 50 years. Social upheaval, we solved
It's
it
all
all.
sorted out. It was all
We
sorted out.
sorted it out and created a better place for people to live.
Yeah.
You know, and she couldn't, because it took the Vulcans several thousand years to get where they got.
Yeah, because they had
We
to get rid
did
of
it
their
in
emotions
50.
and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and she couldn't argue with that, and it made me quite proud of that, because if you've got the right people and the right thinking, you could change the world. It's like you could change it into a better place. I think if the human race survives, I think it could go that way in a very positive way. But I think it's got to be a paradigm shift right across the world to get into that world where they come from.
Well, I think that for me, some of the new aspects coming along are AI. I think that's going to change the world in different ways. And of course, if robotics improves with AI technology, I think we could really in the future have androids of some sort. I think that's a possibility. In that I see, not necessarily within our generation, but I think within the next 100 years that could definitely happen.
It'd be universal income. People pursue art and more other type of stuff. If we end up in a world full of like robots and AI and all this, then the human race is going to...
But wouldn't we become redundant then if everything was done for us? If we had things to do every single thing, how would we all survive?
There is that threat, isn't there? There is that threat. But then again, also the space exploration and new frontiers. And people, if we get to Mars and space and it starts evolving and all this, I mean, they're coming out of... I read an article the other day that NASA's want to build this engine and get you to Mars in 45 days. And this thing is fair. They can do it, apparently. And if AI comes in with quantum computers and all that,
they'll work
the
out
whole ball
things.
game's going to change.
But that's what I'm saying.
And I think human mentality will change with it. We're like this because of the world we live in. But
we could have a huge boost. We could have a huge boost in our society if AI comes along and solves a lot of problems for us. It works out things that we cannot do mathematically ourselves. And if that can happen, I mean, who knows what society could be like in 100 years? And it could solve potentially problems at the moment we can't quite deal with. I mean, obviously we don't really have sanctuary districts, but I mean, let's sort of wrap this up now because we've sort of been going around a bit. But I would say though that whatever this episode was, it was very, very well ahead of its time. It reminded me a bit of Soylent Green, where New York had the population explosion and they couldn't cope with everything, and how in that society, food was literally dead humans. It was. I like predictions about how society, where we kind of think that everything's working, it could deteriorate in a very subtle way, where it's a different world, but it's so gradual that you don't know it. And of course, and that's what I liked about Past Tense, because it was, even when it was made, it was set 30 years ahead when we first watched it. You could see, and I still can see, a future, maybe 30 years from now, rather than 2024. It could be, 2053 or whatever it is, where that kind of aspect could potentially happen. Each generation, each decade, there are different values and different ways of thinking about things, and I think that's why it was so ahead of the game, and I think that it was definitely a classic. So it's really good.
Oh, definitely.
So I suppose to finish off this segment, then, so how would you rate Past Tense, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the two parts out of 10?
10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 10 as well. Yeah, it had everything for me. I love time travel stories in Star Trek. It had a really unique elements, great acting, great idea, great premise. Very, very, still works very, very well today. And so, that's brilliant. Now at that point, we've got the usual Zoom timing out thing. So should we just quickly come back with a bit of news, talk about a few things, and then wrap up, Martin?
I've got no news.
I've got a couple of things.
Okay.
But actually, how long have we got?
Oh, I saw an article. Robert Downey Jr. is going to be a Jedi Master.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I could find the article. I saw it.
Actually, you know what? We've got 10 minutes left. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going.
Let me find the article.
right.
Hang on, I saw it. Where was it on my phone?
I've thrown you now.
Right.
I've caught you out.
Yeah, I saw it briefly. I didn't look at it. It was on the Google thing on my phone, and it said Robert Downey Jr. is going to be a Jedi Master or something. I bet it's
What's he going to be in? What, in one of the new TV shows?
Star Wars, one of the new Star Wars series, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's disappeared. I knew it bloody would.
No.
Right, Robert Downey Jr. No, it's disappeared. They've reset it. Typical.
Let me type it in Google. Maybe I can find it on there. While I'm looking for that, have you heard about this new series called The Last of Us yet?
I know about the computer game, what it's based on.
Yeah, it's based on a video game.
Watched it.
I loved it.
I think he's seen the first 2 episodes.
I've seen the released the first 2. I thought it was really good. I thought it was
I've not seen it yet.
No, I recommend it. Basically, it's a really weird thing. It's set. Oh, it starts off in 2003, and then I won't say that it goes on from there, and it starts off with this weird sort of fungal spore thing where people get infected, and it's what happens from that point onwards. It's got Pedro Pascal from The Mandalorian in it. I just say that it might not be quite so much your kind of thing, but I recommend it. Yeah, I think you might like it. I think it's a pretty solid series so far, and like it's sort of like a bit of an apocalyptic thing, yeah, it's worth a look. Other news I've got is they're still filming Doctor Who season 14. One interesting thing, as a geek like me, apparently they're continuing the Jodie Whittaker TARDIS exterior prop, which I'm surprised about. Not that it matters, but normally they change the.
Horrible.
You don't like that one?
No, I didn't like it. I didn't. I like Capaldi's what he had.
Yeah, but they changed it. But the interior's changed, but the exterior at the moment looks the same, which is interesting. I don't mind it myself. Just type in this Jedi thing. See if I can find this thing you mentioned. Actually, thinking about it. Oh, here we are. Here we are. I found the report that you're talking about. So it says here, Robert Downey Jr. See Robert Downey Jr. as a Jedi Master for Jon Favreau's upcoming Star Wars movie. Robert Downey Jr. has turned into a Jedi Master in a new piece of. Oh no, this is a new piece of fan art. It's rubbish. No, it's rubbish. It's shite. Don't worry about that. I don't think it's fan art.
Oh, getting hopeful.
I know. I was going to say, I think Jon Favreau's doing a movie. No,
I'm a big fan of Jon Downey Jr. I want to say that when I saw you on your stream last night, you were warned not to watch Justice League.
Yes,
I did see that. I do agree with him on the 2-hour movie, but then there's the 4-hour Snyder cut.
Well, I thought about you because I did mention Batman versus Superman and how I hated that movie.
I was sat there watching. No, the 4-hour Snyder cut. I totally agree on the 2-hour cut.
Yeah, I've never seen. I'm not into so much into DC. To me, Superman is just. I like Christopher Reeve. I quite like that new Superman TV show I've been watching a bit of. I've not
watched that yet.
I thought that was quite. I've seen the first few, but then I saw it months ago, and then we moved house, and I've forgotten about it. So
I've got season 2. I've not seen. It's on season 3 now. I think season 4's out this year.
I heard that it's still going, so that's good. But yeah, it's all right from what I've seen of it. And I think that's pretty much it from my perspective. Unless there's anything else you want to share with us?
No, that's it. That's everything. Yeah.
All right, well, let's wrap things up. Luckily, now, do you remember last week we had lots of Zoom problems with Jez from Sidetrek, and luckily, my weird recording thing, it managed to still capture about a minute of the chaos.
Oh.
So I'm going to finish today's show, with about a minute's worth of last week's show bloopers, chaos, talking to nobody. And thanks to Zoom messing up us up. It was terrible last week we had our guest on, but at least last night when I was on his show, it seemed to go all right. So, Martin, I'm not sure what we're talking about next week. We are talking about, we won't say much yet, but we might potentially have a good guest star on next week. If not, we'll discuss what we're going to talk about.
I'll contact them straight after this podcast.
So we'll be back next week. We're not entirely sure what's happening next week or so, but... Yeah. We'll be back soon. So, Martin, thank you very much. And we'll catch you next time on the Solar One Sci-Fi podcast.
Live long and prosper.
Hey, right. Somebody's there. Okay, let's have a look. View. Da. Okay,
Oh, well, he pressed the record button, so I assume he's doing something. I don't know what, but he's there.
I'm here. All right, I can hear somebody in the background, but I can't see any images
look,
yet.
he's frozen in space and time.
I know, this is ridiculous, isn't it? It's never. This is
Yeah,
the worst.
I think he's
This is the worst it's ever been.
stuck between dimensions.
This is the worst it's ever been in
Yes.
3 years of
We
recording.
can't hear you, buddy. We can't hear you.
All right. I'm back. It's recording. I can't see anybody. I don't know if you can hear me. Marty's. Oh, this is bollocks. This is bollocks. All right. Okay. Now,
it's all copyrighted. You know that, right? I'll send you the bill.
So,
all right. Now, Jack,
he's back again.
I'm here. Can you not hear me? Oh, this is bollocks. Tell you what,
Michael, are you there?
I'm there. Can you not?